Good afternoon. I'm here with Jason Bank, a senior partner with Kerr Russell here in Detroit. Jason is chair of the firm's bankruptcy and restructuring group with a focus on commercial bankruptcy, out-of-court workouts, and creditors' rights.
First of all, Keith, thanks for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here.
Jason also provides counsel to numerous small and middle market sized companies and owners throughout the area. Jason, there's been a lot of talk lately about a recession and whether or not we're actually in one or not. The last time we had a recession in 07, 09, it was a huge amount of filings in the bankruptcy space. And at one point in 09, peaked at 58,000. So my first question to you is, assuming there is a recession, what do we expect to see in the restructuring world?
So unlike the Great Recession, there likely will not be a huge wave of bankruptcy filings. We expect to see a slow but steady increase in workouts and restructurings out of court. And we've already seen an increase during the last half of 2022. As economic conditions worsen, we expect to see more businesses in default of their loans and have those business loans be placed in workout groups with their lenders. Initially, the lenders will likely try to resolve the troubled loans in out-of-court restructurings through forbearance agreements or other mechanisms. The bankruptcy filings will continue to increase, however, as out-of-court restructurings are not successful in resolving disputes between businesses and their lenders.
Okay, it seems, at least during COVID, I know I've seen, and I think you did too, that the lenders were very accommodating in their either covenant compliance or any other negotiations. And do you see the creditors tightening their watch list criteria? Is that way may lead to some of the circumstances you described?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you mentioned the COVID pandemic resulted in a pause of many of the lenders' typical collection and enforcement activities. They simply stopped doing the things that they used to do with troubled loans while the pandemic was ongoing. Unfortunately for borrowers, I believe those days are over. Lenders are going to be more closely scrutinizing their loan portfolios. And for those loans that are in default, they're going to place pressure on borrowers to refinance through alternative sources of refinancing by tightening credit lines, instituting default rates of interest, and taking other actions in order to put more pressure on borrowers to simply pay off the bank through any means necessary. Lenders will likely seek to enter into forbearance agreements, which could require the appointment of a chief restructuring officer or receiver if certain milestones are not met.
Now, you've done both in-court and out-of-court restructurings and settlements. Why don't you give me your thoughts on the out-of-court restructurings?
Sure. Yeah. The goal of a borrower and a lender should always be to try to resolve disputes outside of court. They may not agree on everything, but that's something that they should agree on. And the primary reasons are that it's much, much less expensive from a professional fee standpoint when compared to a bankruptcy filing to do an out-of-court workout. Further, the lender and borrower maintain control of the process in an out-of-court workout. There is no bankruptcy judge. There aren't other creditors involved. And so it's a much more controlled process for the lender and the borrower. So again, the out-of-court workout should always be the goal when possible. However, that's not always achievable. It's difficult to achieve a successful out-of-court workout if you have a major creditor who refuses to negotiate or agree to some kind of voluntary resolution. In bankruptcy, there is also tools that allow you to obtain approval of a plan over a creditor's objection. You can reject unprofitable contracts, and then you can obtain discharge of debts. Further, bankruptcy filing results in a stay of all collection and enforcement remedies, which you cannot impose in out-of-court workouts.
Over the last couple of years, we've heard about the work from home policies and whether or not they're impacting filings or not. Do you see more filings happen either in the real estate arena or more in the industrial service sector, or how do you view that?
Well, interestingly enough, during the pandemic, where there should have been a lot of distress through work at home policies, we really didn't see a lot. I think there was a lot of out-of-court workouts and negotiations going forward during that period. I think now, as the return to normal takes place, I think we're going to probably see an increase in more restructuring work come out of those areas. We talk about restaurants during the pandemic, I think simply closed their doors when they couldn't make it. And sometimes they would do that without a formal process or liquidation or restructuring. In this case going forward, I think many restaurants are still kind of barely hanging on as they wait and hope for things to kind of get back to normal. So I think we're going to see more restructurings and workouts in the service industry. And I think with respect to commercial real estate, industrial services of that nature, I think it's going to be kind of a wait and see what happens. I still won't see a lot of distress, but if the work from home continues to be the dominant path, if you will, I think we'll see more distress in that in the next couple of years.
For all the business owners out there, what do you think are the things they should be doing either in preparation for this if this recession does happen? What are the things they can do today?
I think anytime you're thinking about going into a recession, I think automatically the businesses should think about tightening their belt, so to speak, focusing on reducing expenses, preserving cash, being very, very mindful of preparing budgets and preparing projections. Many businesses during the pandemic survived and actually flourished on PPP loans and other governmental assistance. Some were able to stockpile cash. The loans really covered up a lot of operational issues that businesses had. So those days are over, and I think businesses need to become more fiscally disciplined. A business should also review its contracts or jobs for profitability. They should also work to make sure that they are remaining in compliance with their financial covenants on their loan documents to avoid defaults. And then from a creditor standpoint, if you're worried about troubled businesses owing you money, you really need to step up your analysis of your customers, consider tightening up credit terms, performing more scrutiny of the customers to make sure that if there are credit terms that you're trying to anticipate potential defaults, creditors should definitely be acting like things were back in the pre-pandemic days for sure.
There's a lot to think about. We don't have a lot of time, and I know you and I could talk for hours on this, but I really appreciate your thoughts and your insight. Jason, thank you very much.
Thanks, Keith. It was a pleasure to be here.